My wife to show me her phone after receiving an anonymous email accusing her of cheating? I, male 47, have a comfortable and fulfilling life. I have a job I truly enjoy. I live in a nice suburb, and am blessed with 3 wonderful children, male 8, female 6, female 4, and a lovely wife, Emily 45. I've always felt Emily and I were an ideal match. However, a recent email I received has deeply unsettled me and planted a seed of doubt in my mind. Emily lived in the UK between 2010 and 2015, during which time she pursued a PhD. Because she lived there so long, she developed many close friendships, and has made it a point to return every couple of years to maintain those ties. This past August, she traveled to the UK for 3 weeks to attend the wedding of one of her close friends. After some consideration, we agreed that it would be best for me and the children to remain at home, as I could not take that much time away from work, and the children were unlikely to find much enjoyment in such an event. Emily departed, returned as expected, and life returned to normal for us. Last week I received an email on my work email address. It was supposedly from the wife of Emily's friend. I'll call him Jake, male 44. According to this woman, she has a very strong reason to suspect that Jake and Emily engaged in an affair. She listed off her suspicions, noting Jake had picked Emily up from the airport, spent considerable time at her hotel, and how the two of them frequently went out to dinner alone. She even included pictures of my wife's earrings that she said she found in Jake's pockets when she was doing the laundry and pictures of a lipstick stain on his shirt. The color is one I recognize as something Emily often wears. There is some other evidence she listed off. For the sake of conciseness, I will not include them here. All this was a lot to absorb, and for a while I thought it was some sort of joke, so I tried my best to ignore it. But it kept coming back into my mind. I remember that before her trip, my wife would talk to all her friends there. I don't know if this email is influencing my memory, but I think she probably spoke with Jake the most. Additionally, I know Emily never liked Jake's wife, though I can't say why. I've never pried into Emily's phone or social media accounts before, but I feel very tempted to now. However, I know I'd feel terrible if I looked and found nothing. Also, if I start acting suspicious, wouldn't she just delete everything out of fear of being found out? I am unsure of how to move forward, and would welcome any guidance on handling this. The best I can currently come up with is asking to see her phone immediately after confronting her about it so as to not give her no time to delete anything. Though part of me thinks this would upset her and potentially not even show anything. Comments. Comment 1. This was an infuriating raid. I feel so badly for Oop, his ex is despicable. Selling the family because it was in her name just shocked me. It's so clear she only cares about money and herself. Good riddance to bad rubbish, looking forward to her karma. Comment 2. Woman just blew her entire life to be with a guy who will cheat on within the year. When the post-nut clarity hits, it's going to rough. Update 1. A few hours after sharing my first post, I confronted Emily. She confirmed my fears. She claims she's in love with Jake and can't live a lie any longer. She still claims to love me and the kids, but says she can't stay with us any longer. According to her, she was waiting for a better time to tell me and the children. Apparently this has been going on since March, with Jake flying out here occasionally and Emily secretly meeting him. We're getting divorced. Emily is moving to the UK soon. She confirmed that in August, in addition to the wedding, she attended a job interview, and she's set to start around the new year. She's already applied for a British visa. She plans to live with Jake once she moves. As for custody, Emily is voluntarily surrendering her chance of full custody. She doesn't want to uproot the kids, so they'll stay here in Canada with me. There's a part of me that appreciates that decision, but there's also the part that is astonished at how easily she's walking away. She wants to pay child support, but I'd rather raise my children without her financial influence. That said, the court will likely insist on support, regardless of my feelings. Emily is also seeking structured visitation rights, which given the circumstances will likely be granted. Based on what I've been told, the court generally leans toward arrangements that allow both parents to maintain relationships with the children, even when one is relocating to a different country. The lawyers are still working out the details, but it seems she'll have visitation during school breaks and holidays, with the possibility of virtual calls in between. I've been keeping things as amicable as possible, and the more cooperative I am, the more Emily seems to agree with my demands. We are also discussing the future of our home. Emily has expressed a desire to sell the property and divide the proceeds. While I am reluctant to part with the family home, it is unlikely I have much of a choice since it was bought during our marriage. For now, our lawyers are still working through the details, and no final decisions have been made. Given the situation, it could be a good while before we reach a resolution. In the meantime, I've been advised not to make any major financial moves. As much as I want to stay here with the children, I know selling is most likely inevitable. As of this writing, Emily is in an Airbnb and Jake has flown here to stay with her. They plan on traveling to the UK at some point in the near future. My lawyer tells me that adultery isn't grounds for special treatment when it comes to custody or property division. Therefore, it won't influence how assets are divided unless marital funds are directly involved. Emily likely used money from her personal account. Unless it can be proven she used our joint finances to fund the affair, it's unlikely this will make any difference in court. I have been in regular communication with Jake's soon-to-be ex-wife, Eleanor, primarily through email, and more recently we've spoken over the phone a few times. Eleanor apologized, saying she felt guilty for telling me about the affair and worried that if she hadn't, maybe my marriage could have been salvaged. I reassured her that, for me, the gravity of the situation made divorce inevitable, and I'd rather not remain in the dark about something of this significance. She even sent me messages and other evidence of their relationship, but since Emily is openly admitting to the affair, it doesn't really matter in the context of the law. Eleanor has also told me a lot about Jake apparently. This is the third time he's cheated on her, and she's had enough. There's no chance of reconciliation this time, she says, and he doesn't seem interested in trying. She mentioned that Jake has zero desire to raise children who are not biologically his, which explains why Emily's not fighting for custody. Eleanor's divorce will most likely be much longer and more drawn out than mine given that both her and Jake want full custody of their children, and can't agree on several other issues. I haven't had much time to process everything. These past 2 weeks have felt like a blur in every way. But one thing I can say with certainty is that I have nothing left for Emily. Not because she betrayed our marriage, but because of how easily she's walking away from our children. I never thought I could hate someone I once loved so much. It's a strange feeling. The hardest part in all of this is the children. My 2 youngest daughters have started asking why their mother isn't around as much anymore, and it's been very difficult trying to communicate with them about the nature of the situation. My eldest seems to understand a little more. And, as a result, he has become quiet and withdrawn. I'm fortunate to have a family that has been incredibly supportive so far. My children have received numerous thoughtful letters from some of their cousins, which I've been reading to them each night. All my siblings have also sent gifts for the kids, and one of my brothers, along with his wife, drove up to visit over the past weekend. My sister-in-law even prepared plenty of food, some of which is still in the freezer. They also kept the children entertained while I met with my lawyer. My other siblings have also offered to come by and look after the kids whenever I need them. Beyond that, my parents have been calling daily to check in on us, and my 78-year-old mother has already made plans to stay with us for 2 weeks in November to help around the house. The collective effort of my family has made this experience much more bearable, and I'm deeply grateful for all their support. To everyone who encouraged me to speak with Emily after my last post, I'm grateful. I was tempted to ignore Eleanor's message, but it kept gnawing at me. Your advice gave me the courage to act. Emily has shown herself to be a liar, and I have no doubt that her idea of a better time was simply when it would cause the least inconvenience for her and Jake. Update 2. Think of this less as an update, and more as a chance to vent a few things now that I've had more time to process my situation. I know that Emily often traveled back and forth to the UK during our marriage. She claims her affair with Jake only began in March 2024, but I'm convinced she's lying. It's almost certain that this has been going on for years. Given how much she had already prepared by the time I confronted her, it's become clear to me and everyone else that she had been planning this for some time. In fact, within a few short days of our confrontation, she already had certain legal documents prepared. Additionally, Jake arriving in Canada shortly after I confronted Emily made it clear that they had planned for her to tell me roughly around this date in advance. It makes sense that Emily was well prepared and was just waiting for things to be better lined up for herself. After all, she'd long since applied for her visa, secured a job, secretly appraised her car, our family car, though it was under her name, and sent personal items with Jake to the UK during his secret visits, all right under my oblivious nose. I have a feeling I'm only scratching the surface and have no real idea of how far this actually goes. Not that Emily would ever tell me its depth. In addition to all of this, Emily had already been in touch with her lawyer long before I confronted her. Taking all this into account, it's hard not to wonder if she secured her job even earlier than she let on, perhaps to make her actions seem less calculated. 2 of Emily's friends have since reached out to express shock and disappointment by her actions. One of them, Janet, mentioned that according to another friend, Emily had been consulting her divorce lawyer as far back as late August or early September, and this other friend also confirmed my suspicion that Emily had been sending some of her belongings to the UK during Jake's visits. I've been losing sleep, replaying the past few months in my mind, maybe driving myself a little crazy. But certain things stand out. For example, when Emily went to the UK in August for the wedding, she was carrying 3 fully loaded suitcases. She told me that they were filled with presents for her friends, and I didn't question it, even though it seemed a bit excessive at the time. When I picked her up from the airport after her trip, I noticed the bags were suspiciously light. I can assume that in addition to the job interview she claimed to attend, she transported a bunch of her personal items to the UK, which would explain why, since her return, she seemed to have been wearing a smaller selection of her clothing. Despite this, I was somehow blindsided, and I completely blame myself. Looking back, I can see there were signs I ignored, and I guess I didn't think Emily was capable of this sort of thing. A part of me wonders if this outcome could have been avoided entirely had I been more assertive and vigilant in the past. The worst part of all is that my children are now dealing with the consequences of my ignorance and stupidity. While I twiddled my thumbs, my wife had essentially started a new life. Most people in my life now know about my separation from Emily. I've stopped wearing my wedding band, and I've explained the situation to friends and colleagues who noticed its absence. One of my close friends, and many others who reached out privately on Reddit, have suggested I get DNA tests for the children, given Emily's travel patterns and tendency to lie. While I understand where they are coming from, this is something I'll never do. I'd never assign my children to another man. Nothing will change that. Life without Emily has thus far been difficult. Mornings have become a hectic rush between getting the kids ready and getting myself out the door. I'm barely on time for work for nearly half the week. It's frankly exhausting trying to keep up with all the extra parenting duties I have to perform throughout the day. Our current home has a large driveway, so on top of everything else, I'm already dreading the task of shoveling it once the snow starts falling. The kids are feeling the strain as well. They don't particularly like the food I prepare most days, and they hate how I'm always busy. It's incredibly frustrating to know that while we're here struggling, Emily recently departed for a relaxing vacation through Europe with Jake. The communication between us has dwindled, and I only learned of these developments recently. I have no idea if she plans to return to Canada after her vacation or settle directly into what will likely be a very comfortable life in the UK. On a more positive note, I was able to get the kids to see their doctor recently. She gave me a bunch of useful resources and advice. She placed an emphasis on how time and clear communication were the most important factors for their adjustment. While I'm optimistic, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't worried. It's still early, I know, but they remain quite upset about the entire ordeal and act out regularly as a result. It is abundantly clear that they're having a hard time adjusting to our new reality. Throughout all of this, my family has been a tremendous support. My mother arrived as promised early last week, and things have already become significantly easier. The kids enjoy her cooking and spending time with her. Her presence has also freed me to handle other tasks. Whenever the divorce is finalized, I plan to designate my eldest brother and sister-in-law as legal guardians for the children. They live relatively nearby and have already agreed to take on that role if needed, which brings me some peace of mind. However, I highly doubt this will be anytime soon given my much busier schedule and Emily dragging her feet before traveling. The whole process is slowed to a snail's pace. One of the hardest aspects of all this has been making decisions about our family home. After considerable thought, and speaking it over many times with my family, I'm leaning towards selling at this stage. Emily has already offered me a bit more than half of the proceeds since she sold our SUV right before leaving the country. My lawyer has noted that selling this UV before we finalized anything was premature on her part, considering I contributed significantly 40% to the purchase. He thinks I have strong grounds to seek reimbursement elsewhere in our asset division, which aligns with Emily offering more of the house. Getting more than half seems fair, given that I contributed about 65 to 70% of the down payment and monthly mortgage payments. As I mentioned above, the family SUV was registered in only her name. However, I covered about 40% of its costs, so it's frustrating she sold it unilaterally. As I've learned over the past several weeks, my sedan is too snug for the kids and inconvenient for my mother to duck in and out of when she runs errands. Therefore, I'll need to trade it for something larger. In return, Emily has graciously insisted I keep the furniture and appliances, least she can do, I suppose. As much as part of me would like to stay in our current home, it's probably better for us to move. Part of me hopes this will help us avoid future interference from Emily, though. In reality, she's just as likely to interfere no matter where we are. I've been looking at townhouses closer to my place of work, which would cut down my commute and place us near a well-rated school. However, my sisters brought up that moving the kids now would mean changing schools and losing their friends, which would be yet another big change for them. An alternative option is that we move to a smaller, more manageable house close to our current one. This would reduce my workload and allow the kids to stay at the same school. Regardless of which option we choose, the idea of a new home without Emily's memory is appealing. Our current home's location is yet another example of how foolish and short-sighted I've been. Its location was much more convenient for Emily's commute compared to my own. It worked out for a time as the children's school was close to Emily's work in case they needed her during the day. But now all of this is useless as my place of work is rather far. I've heard nothing from Emily's family, and frankly I have no interest in reaching out. As for Emily's future with Jake, I don't wish her relationship to fail. The longer her life is stable, the less likely she'll disrupt ours. But I take solace in knowing she remains unaware of Jake's infidelity history. I don't feel any moral obligation to warn her about Jake's character, and Eleanor feels the same way. I've made a point to check in on Eleanor regularly. She doesn't have the same family support I do. Her immediate family is charmed by Jake's ample wealth and believes that she should do whatever it takes to keep him, even though it is clear that neither he nor Eleanor wants reconciliation. Now, for the next story. My husband might be cheating with a student, and I'm not sure how to handle it. My partner is a high school math teacher. He has been teaching now for a decade now, and generally has been praised by students, parents, other teachers and admin for how he does his job. We have been together for 7 years. We got married in 2023. I have never worried about him being interested in his students. We have even talked about teacher-student relationships and he has never expressed anything other than disgust, and how it's an abuse of power, even if the student is an adult, not to specific instance IRL, just movie instances and general topic discussion. He has never been called out for being inappropriate that I know, never engaged with students over the weekend summer, unless it's school related, but even then all contact is through school email, or with parents. He generally refers to his students as his kids and actively keeps a distance from developing too close of a relationship, because he is young, attractive and other male teachers recommended he do so. Okay, here's what happened. Around March we were at the movie theater one evening and I noticed a gaggle of girls staring and pointing. I notified my partner, assuming they were his students, and he told me I was right. We did not go over to say hi. We have seen his students before out and about, and he says hi on a case-by-case basis but typically doesn't initiate, and they did not come to us. But I noticed the rest of the girls playfully shoving one girl with lots of whispers, and the girl was staring at my husband sheepishly. I immediately thought she probably had a crush and honestly thought nothing of it after until last weekend. We were celebrating Canada Day at a BBQ with family and my husband was pretty wasted. At one point he went to the bathroom and didn't come back for so long I was worried he was getting sick, so I checked on him. When I knocked and said it was me, he said he was okay and would be right out but didn't unlock the door. He stayed in the bathroom for another 10 minutes. Super unusual for him, but it could have been anything. Later that night, I woke up around 3, and he wasn't in bed. Worried again, I got up and found him on his phone in the living room. This is also unusual. When I asked what he was doing, he was definitely surprised and hid his phone screen. He said he couldn't sleep and didn't want to wake me up by watching videos next to me in bed. We both went back to sleep together. The next morning he was hungover and slept in. I went through his phone. I have never not had a reason to trust him, so I have never gone through his phone. I found nothing of interest, except for the Snapchat app, which was not logged into. He used to use Snapchat but, from what I knew, hadn't in years. I honestly assumed nothing finding the app and figured I was reading too much into things. Last night I saw a Snapchat notification pop up on his phone while we were watching TV. It was out of the corner of my eye but the logo is too recognition to mistake. My heart fucking dropped, because knowing he was logged out last week means he is definitely using it secretly. I pretended like I didn't notice and a couple minutes later he got up to take a long poop. I cried while he was in the bathroom. Shortly after I said I was going to bed early and he stayed up without me. He's on summer break. When I got up for work he was still passed out. I went on his phone and found no Snapchat app. It was then that I knew something was shady for sure, and when I looked up Snapchat on the home screen, it was there, just hidden in a folder of apps disguised as cooking and workout apps. He had not logged out of Snapchat, and when I opened it, there was only one conversation with a real human, and it was a girl. There was no evidence of conversation between them because for those who don't know, Snapchat deletes previous messages for good. I was ready to confront him for cheating with basically zero evidence but decided to keep snooping for something concrete. In that same disguised folder I found that he had OnlyFans downloaded. The only content creator he was subscribed to had the same username as the woman on Snapchat. But it's his fucking student. The one from the theater, who was blushing. I have never clocked a face so fast. I am 100% certain. We make fun of OnlyFans simps all the time, so I was already disgusted, but I actually threw up when I found this. I was scared I was going to wake him up and genuinely didn't know what to do, so I put his phone back and left for work. At work I did some sleuthing, and was able to find the girl's Instagram Twitter accounts. She's 18 and from grad photos I can tell with certainty that she attended my husband's school. The same OnlyFans link was in her Twitter bio. He has texted me normally throughout the day and I have not responded to any but to tell him I have to go to my parents tonight, but in reality I am still at work, because I don't know what to do. The reality is that this is fucked up, but she has graduated. Is this now just the same as any old affair? I don't even know if she was in any of his classes. I don't know what to think. I don't know what to do next. Lawyer? Should I ask my husband and see what he says? Should I ask her? Comment 1. 1. I'm so sorry you're dealing with this, it's incredibly painful. It might be wise to gather your thoughts and consult a lawyer to understand your options before confronting him. Comment 2. This is a huge betrayal, and it's understandable to feel lost. Taking some time to process everything and possibly speaking to a therapist can help you decide the next steps. Update. My post blew up and there were many update me comments, so I wanted to update. I read every single comment, but there was too much to reply to. To clarify some things. No, I didn't have pictures or screenshots of the Snapchats or OnlyFans. I was so upset I didn't even think about it until afterwards, and I thought there would be another chance to get them. I realized I fucked up. For some of my early comments my brain was still reeling. I am 100% leaving my husband, to make it clear. It took me some time to come to terms with what was actually happening and the fact that I was in denial, but Reddit helped me get there, so thanks. The comments were about 50/50 split between talking to a lawyer or my husband first. The reality is that I didn't think I had anywhere else to go at the time, and I was so emotional last night, and felt like I needed to know. I wanted to confront him and rip off the band-aid. He called me while I was still at work, and I ended up telling him we needed to talk. He seemed thrown off by this and canceled plans to stay in. I didn't get home for almost 3 hours after that, crying and deciding WTF to do. Ultimately I went home. If you're ever in the same position, don't do what I did. I wanted to follow the advice of many comments by basically saying I know about her, but I really wanted to get pictures of the evidence first, so I planned on playing it cool, saying never mind, all is okay, until we went to sleep and then sneaking back on his phone. I shouldn't have said anything on the phone, but my emotions got the better of me. But when I walked in the house, I immediately felt like he knew that I knew. He said what's up super standoffishly, just seemed off, and whatever I said on the phone must have tipped him off. Either that, or he was able to tell that I was on his phone in the morning somehow, pretending to be asleep? I'm not sure. So I couldn't control myself and got super emotional and confronted him on the spot. I asked if he had OnlyFans. It was the first thing out of my mouth, and he literally said no. What did you want to talk about? I told him I knew that he did, and he denied. I told him I went on his phone this morning and scoffed and walked away. I followed him crying and screaming that I knew he had OnlyFans and Snapchat, that I was leaving him, and finally cried out something about cheating with his students. When I said that, he immediately turned around and asked what the fuck I was talking about. I told him that I knew about the girl 18F, and his face genuinely turned into somebody I don't know. He immediately began yelling in my face that I don't know what I was talking about. How dare me accuse him of sleeping with his students, that I'm crazy and trying to ruin his life. I was screaming at him back. I told him to open his phone and prove it, and he laughed in my face about how stupid somebody would be to do what I'm accusing him of, and basically threw his phone at my face and said, "Knock yourself out." As people can probably guess, there was nothing. He definitely knew before I got home. He was logged out of Snapchat, and when I asked him to log in and stop lying, he logged into a different account and asked me if I would drop it now. The first one had just 18F and a few AI account things. This one had all his old college group chats and other people including me. He gaslighted me and swore he didn't have another account. He even suggested that I dreamt all of this. At one point he finally admitted that he subscribed to an OV for a streamer during one of our intimacy lulls, but never a student, and he swore he lied because he loved me, and doesn't engage in that kind of behavior anymore. It was just hours of lies and gaslighting. He said that he knew which student I was talking about, but that he's never spoken to her or taught her. He didn't recall the movie theater incident, and accused me of imagining it too. He denied receiving a Snapchat at all a few nights ago when I first saw it. He denied acting shady the days before. He denied everything. I was absolutely disgusted by him the whole night. As the conversation went on, he started to talk about how he's going to get us marriage counseling, that my trust issues can be worked on, and he would leave teaching if it's what it took for me to stay, but never admitted to anything with a student. Admittedly, I was starting to get a bit of a gaslight fog about the situation, believing some of what he was saying, but when he volunteered to leave teaching, I knew it was worse than I knew. Because teaching is his everything, he gave up an amazing opportunity which would have made him 3-4x the money and way more recognition to teach, and has never complained about his job a day in his life. We both know he loves his job more than he loves me. If this was truly all a misunderstanding, or if it was a one-off with a graduated non-student, I just think he would do more to protect his job and his career. He wouldn't just leave over crazy behavior from me. That immediately told me everything I needed to know, that he was panicking on the inside about me leaving and me telling people. Maybe because more happened with 18F than what I know. Maybe because he's done this before. I'm not sure. But he fucked up bad. It's so late, I was so exhausted, and I feigned agreement in working through it, and told him I could move past it, but I was obviously lying. I need time to get shit in order. He is sleeping in the guest room tonight. I told him I would need a lot of space, and he said he was okay with that. He left his phone in our bedroom for the night as a peace offering. I hate his fucking guts. I have so many things on my mind right now: what the fuck to do, how to get a lawyer, if I should tell my family, if I should tell the school, the fact that I have no proof but I know what I saw. The fact that I'll be 33 and divorced. Above all, the fact that my husband may have slept with this girl. That's my gut telling me, because he kept repeating that he would never sleep with his students, over and over, when I was using words like cheat with, look at porn of, or sexed with. So that's the update. I was gaslighted and lied to. I got no sleep last night, but still went to work this morning to get away from him. He hasn't texted me or called all day. I want nothing more than to go to the school with this info. My heartbreak is gone, and I'm just angry and disgusted and want to right his wrongs, but I need him to admit to it so I can know how bad it is, and I don't think he will. I was thinking of telling him that I reached out to the girl I'm not going to, and see if that freaks him out enough to come clean. But what if she doesn't know he's using a fake account? Or just saying I have proof, even though I don't? Anybody have any good ideas? In the meantime, looking for divorce lawyer ASAP. Found proof of husband Snapchatting, subscribed to Students Only Fans, but now all evidence is gone and he gaslit me. Have no idea where to go from here besides start the divorce process. Now, for the next story. I recently found out that my wife has been having multiple affairs over the past 2 years, and it has completely shattered my trust. I'm in shock and I really need some advice right now. I, 40 male, and my wife, 37 female, have been married for 10 years, and we recently celebrated our anniversary. We have 2 wonderful kids together. Since the beginning of the year, things have been off between us. She's been acting strangely since the beginning of the year, irritable, avoiding me, and we haven't been intimate much. Some days she's happy, some others fully irritated. Sometimes she's a great mother to our kids, some other times she wishes they had never been born. Recently I had to go to the urologist for a urinary tract infection, and the test suggested it might be an STD. This was a huge shock because I've never been with anyone other than my wife since we started dating. Right now she's away at a so-called business seminar, of which I talked about in a different post. She has been keeping diaries for over a decade, and out of desperation, I read them for the first time ever. It turns out she's been having multiple sexual partners for the past 2 years. In particular, there was one affair that lasted over a year, and it seems part of her irritability was due to her lover moving on to someone else. I also discovered she has a hidden Tinder account too and been meeting with other men regularly. I am devastated beyond words. I feel lost and unsure of what to do, especially since we have 2 little kids who mean the world to me. I need some advice on how to handle this situation. Should I confront her immediately? Should I consult a lawyer first? How do I even begin to process this betrayal and protect my kids through all of this? Thank you for any guidance you can offer in this incredibly difficult time. Comment 1. 1. I'm so sorry you're going through this. It's incredibly painful and confusing. You deserve honesty and respect, so confronting her is essential, but take some time to consider if you want to involve a lawyer or therapist first for support during this tough conversation. Comment 2. This is such a heavy burden to carry. Protecting yourself and your kids emotionally and legally is crucial. If you haven't yet, consider speaking to a counselor or lawyer to help you navigate the next steps clearly. Update. Thank you all for your invaluable advice and support. It has been a tremendous help during this difficult time. After my last post, my in-laws kindly offered to look after the kids while my wife was away at her seminar. They remain unaware of the turmoil I've been experiencing. I used this time to go through her diaries and take pictures of their contents. Each entry felt like a stab in the back, leaving me in a state of shock and disbelief. I just don't recognize anymore the person I thought I knew and loved for over a decade. To avoid going into too much detail, the revelations in the diaries would make any movie or TV series I've ever seen pale in comparison. She has been involved with at least 6 different men over the past 2 years. These affairs occurred not only during her so-called seminars but also during short business trips, dinners and other supposed work-related events. Meanwhile, I was at home, taking care of the kids and naively believing I was supporting her career. Some entries vividly describe how great these encounters were for her, all while expressing gratitude towards me for being a devoted husband and father, without a single trace of remorse. This lack of guilt and the extent of her deception make me question her emotional and mental state. While reading through the diaries, I felt an overwhelming sense of despair and was seriously contemplating suicide. In the end, I sought refuge with friends for a few days as I felt I couldn't be alone, otherwise I'd do something that could never be taken back. They really supported me a lot during this time and helped me get in contact with a therapist. I'm now taking regular therapy sessions once per week. They also helped me in getting in touch with lawyers specializing in divorce. I'm also getting treatment for my STD as well. Returning home after picking up the kids from my in-laws was an emotionally devastating experience. I couldn't bring myself to smile at all. At some point, while contemplating all the possible ways I could end my life, my daughter just looked at me and saw my face. Without saying a word, she just came over and wrapped her arms around me. At that moment I broke down, held her tightly and burst into tears in front of her. She's my sweet angel, and the shame of having considered leaving my kids to suffer under their mother's disdain was almost too much to bear. For the first few weeks after finding out, I could barely sleep at all, and had to depend on sleeping pills just to get through the nights. My motivation was at an all-time low, affecting both my home life and my work. I forced myself to continue exercising and found out it was the only thing that actually made me feel better during this time. To whoever said in the previous post that I shouldn't give up on doing exercise, thank you, you may have just saved my life. The stress intensified after my wife returned from her trip. Initially, it took all my energy to hide my disgust at her and the knowledge I had gained about her actions. I've somewhat got used to this now, but it remains emotionally draining. She did notice that something was off, but still appears to believe that I am entirely unaware of what has transpired. Her lack of shame is staggering. Just recently, she asked me to buy her the expensive gift I promised her for our 10-year anniversary, for which I made an excuse to not buy yet, despite her going into another business trip. Just the day after our anniversary, which was described in extremely painful detail in her diaries. To make matters worse, she was even arranging to meet her latest partner on the day of my birthday. Nowadays I've started to feel a lot better, thanks to exercise and therapy. I had never been to a therapist before in my life, and to be honest, I am regretting not having done it sooner. Despite my wife betraying me in the worst possible way, part of me still thought that maybe all of this was my fault. Maybe if I had done this, if I had put more effort into that, I blamed myself for a lot of things. My therapist helped me see through it that, while I could have done some things differently, in the end, I cannot be held responsible for the actions she chose to take, and no one deserves to be betrayed in the way I was. If I'm at fault for anything, it's for blaming myself for everything, always putting her needs ahead of my own, and trusting her unconditionally without question. While it was extremely hard for me to balance work and looking after the kids alone every time she went on any of these trips, I always let her go after convincing myself that I was doing it for her, to support her business, to let her relieve stress from being at home. That this is what a supportive husband would do. And that if maybe I had a better job or made her happier, she wouldn't feel the need to escape from home. I'd be lying if I said I'm not depressed anymore, but I'm certainly doing much better these days. Nowadays I feel more rage rather than sadness, and it is the rage that's keeping me going. My therapist advised me to channel this rage into the things I do, which has worked surprisingly well. I talked with 2 law firms about my situation, and was advised to collect more evidence, which I've been devoting myself to for the past few weeks. I've finished digitizing all of her diaries from the past 2 years, which were quite a lot. I got access to her computer, and found just way too many photos, chat conversations and documents to help my case. She's been posting all of her adventures into a very distorted private group in Facebook, to which I've also taken plenty of screenshots of. I've compiled a list of all of her sexual partners in the diaries, and have been identifying them one by one on social media, etc. I've gathered everything I could on her current sexual partners, and managed to figure out where they live and/or work. Now I'm debating whether I should confront them or not. The things I've read in these diaries are so bizarre that I thought maybe she was just writing material for some sort of twisted novel. That is, until I found all the other stuff in her computer, etc. Maybe I'm broken myself as well, but a part of me is actually enjoying this process of gathering all these tiny pieces of evidence and information, cross-referencing them with her diaries, and finding everything I can about her and her lovers. Part of me wants to see her burn on social media by posting directly everything I found out, since a big part of her business is centered around social media. But I'm refraining myself from doing so since this would also affect both me and the kids, as well as her parents, who have been nothing but kind to me since we got married. I'm also not sure if I should bring this to light to her parents as well, since this will probably devastate them. I'm planning on confronting her after talking further with the lawyers about how to make sure to gain custody of my kids. The country I live in has a rather unfair tendency of granting custody to the mother, even if she's unfit for it, setting the terms of the divorce and child support. In any case, thank you all for the advice. A few weeks ago I was in full despair, and had no idea what to do nor how to approach the situation. Nowadays I feel that little by little I'm digging myself out of this hole I've been thrown into. Sorry if I don't respond to all your comments right now. My full attention is devoted to protecting my kids. Now, for the next story. I'm leaving my husband after discovering he's been mocking me behind my back to his ex. My husband, male 45, and I, female 36, met about 6 years ago. We had been married for 1 year. When we met I was very fit and athletic. I started gaining weight, however, after suffering 2 miscarriages and the loss of my mother to cancer. I was very depressed and barely got out of bed if not to go to work. I stopped exercising and instead started eating junk food. I gained 40 pounds in 2 years, 2019 to 2020. Under this time my husband, then fiancé, was very supportive and loving. I felt guilty and tried to give him an out several times, but instead he proposed, and we got married last summer. Since our marriage I have been feeling much better and it showed. I have lost around 20 pounds so far and I gained back my muscles and AABs. He was so happy to see me feeling better. On his computer, however, it was totally a different story. He was talking, almost under our entire relationship, to his ex-wife about me. His ex-wife, F46, left him about 7 to 8 years ago for her colleague. The relationship didn't work, however, and she tried to get back together with my husband. He has already met me, but they stayed friends, mostly via chat, texting, since she lives 12h away. My husband was complaining about everything about me. My job, my depression, my cooking, but mostly about my weight. He was telling her how disgusting I was to him, how he even found it hard to share the same bed since I snored like a dog. He sent her pictures of me while sleeping, sometimes in underwear, with comments about my belly, double chin, back, boobs, etc. She found these pictures extremely amusing and she came up with the name White Whale. They both found it hilarious, and now this is what they referred to me as. They don't flirt exactly or talk about being together or starting an affair, but they do say that they miss each other and they reminisce about the time they were married. She's more flirtatious, and he really enjoys it. Whatever he's telling her isn't what I have experienced with him. I don't disgust him. He tells me that he loves me all the time. We have great and passionate sex, and the way he touches and makes love to me is so great. He must be a really good actor if he was in reality disgusted by me. And he hates the few times we have to sleep apart. He's lying, and I don't know why he's doing it. He's lying to one of us, and I'm not sure if I want to know who he's lying to and why. I decided to get out of this marriage and leave this behind me. Right now I'm acting like everything is normal, but I have started looking for a new job in another city, and a place to rent. I also started with birth control pills. In case something happens between us, and I have talked to a lawyer to prepare the divorce and start the process once I'm gone. One thing I'm not going to do is fall back into depression and weight gain. I will not allow it. What a waste of love he has been. Edit: I can't believe I need to explain this about the birth control pills. Very simple explanation. Up until I went through his messenger, I loved and trusted this guy. We had a great sex life and we were trying to conceive. When I read what he has written and the way he took pictures of me sleeping, something happened inside of me, like I don't know this person in front of me anymore. I can't read his face, and I don't trust him. I don't know how long I'm going to need to stay under the same roof as him. I don't know what his reaction would be if I refused him under a long period of time with no real excuse. I don't know what else he's capable of besides taking pictures of sleeping people. I don't know if I, in a moment of weakness, succumbed to lust, or if he for a moment could fool me that he actually loved me. For all these reasons and many darker scenarios, I have played in my head I'm taking extra precautions. Anyone with an IQ of a chicken could understand that, or so I hope. Thank you everyone for the support. I will update you when I know more about where I'm headed. Comments. Comment 1. My ex was narcissistic and ended up being a paranoid schizophrenic. He would do stuff like this, and tell other girls we were just friends or what he needed to say to them to get in their pants. I caught him cheating a couple of times before I wised up. People that are so loving to your face 1 minute and then act like that behind your back are super dangerous. I hope op stays no contact. What a boss move. Good for you. Comment 2. People do stupid shit for attention sometimes. The ex was someone who left him, and after time some folks can reconcile. My money is he didn't want to fully let go of the past, and he wanted her approval. He probably said one negative thing about his wife and his ex was so pleased he committed to it. I've given up on trying to find logic in why people do some of the crazy shit they do. I think mostly people want attention or validation in situations like this. We can speculate all day. Maybe he was insecure in his relationship with Oop would explain the way he gave her attention, especially when she was unhappy. His first wife left him. His second wife leaving would be an understandable fear. At the same time, he has a sort of second chance to have a sort of friendship with the first ex, who enjoyed hearing about the white whale he married. I'm guessing completely out of my ass, of course. We won't ever really know. If I were a betting lass, I'd wager his own insecurity and inability to let the past go caused a self-fulfilling prophecy. All dude had to do is be as loyal to his woman online like he appeared to be in person, and he failed. Dude should have gone to therapy instead. Update. I didn't pry or spy on my husband. I used his MacBook to do some work and he had forgotten to log out from Facebook and Messenger. He has never given me any reason to spy on him. After I found out, however, I would occasionally check his phone. Maybe hoping that it was all a bad joke. He continued complaining anyhow, and now he was telling her I was being distant and cold in manner, and that he was tired of me. He even lied and told her I was gaining even more weight even though I'm not. He told her we weren't having sex. I avoided him because he couldn't find it under the rolls of fat. A joke that she highly appreciated. I didn't spy after that. I got the confirmation I needed. In the meantime, he acted the worried husband with me, concerned about me and asking if I was going through a new depression. He told me he loved me, and that he was there for me. He did everything like previous times I had dips. Called from work, came home with takeouts from my favorite restaurants, did all the cleaning and washing around the house, baked fresh bread in the mornings, flowers and chocolate, and asked me if I wanted to go for nighttime drives walks. He used to take me for a drive the nights I was feeling very down and depressed. How can anyone be so two-faced? I have my big sister who lives in another city. I told her that I was leaving my husband, and that I was looking for jobs in her city. My sister is married and she lives with her husband and daughter in a big house. She offered me one of her spare bedrooms. I got a few job interviews and one of them turned into an offer. It's not exactly my field of work and it came with a significant decrease in salary. But I thought about it, and it's a good start until something more suitable comes up. I didn't want to prolong my stay with him any longer, and a decrease in income is a good sacrifice, plus I'm going to have lower rent, and I'm selling my car since the new job is a walking distance from Sissy's house. No more worry about the crazy gas prices. My new job starts on October 1st. I'm working my notice period from my computer. The 2-month between jobs, I'm just going to have fun and work on myself. I took my name off the lease, but I'm going to pay 2 more months. I left him last Sunday. The night before I prepared a very nice dinner and I effed his brains out all night. It felt so good to hear him whispering how much he loved me and how lucky he was to have me. In the morning I left the divorce papers and my attorney's number in the kitchen. When I got to my sister, I finally could tell her and the rest of my family about everything. I showed them all his conversations and even the pictures he's taken of me. They're all pissed at him. He has been calling and texting obsessively, but he doesn't know where I live now. Emailed, DM. He went to my parents, but they just shunned him at the door and advised him to let me go. Maybe he knows now because he's been asking to explain and apologize, etc. I don't care. All I've texted back is that if he wants to convey a message he could do it through my lawyer. Now, for the next story. After all the effort I put into winning my husband back, I've come to a realization I'm better off without him, and now I'm the one leaving. I have secured an apartment for my baby and me, and I have put everything in order and prepared for custody. Shared or otherwise. I have divided the money and transferred my share to a third account, and it will stay there until the divorce proceedings and the dividing of the assets. I found out that my husband was having an affair while I was postpartum. I thought that I would die, because I love him, and it felt like my heart was broken into a million pieces. I knew that it was over, but my curiosity got the best of me. I wanted to know why. What was it she had that I didn't? Did he love her? I started reading his texts and everything was there. He felt like he was alive again. He was happy and excited. She's single and childless, so she had all the time in the world to make him her priority. He felt seen and desired by her. I was confused because even with life coming between us, he was always my love, and I made sure he knew that every day. Still, it wasn't enough. I read thousands upon thousands of messages between them, and I started being everything he fantasized about. In the beginning it felt weird and he was confused, but I just went on. Every time he made plans with her, I found a way to make him stay, or I made sure that I sent him exhausted to her. The messages became less and less frequent, and the passion and excitement subsided. Soon answering her became more of a chore. The complaining started and him pulling away. He was happier at home and he couldn't wait to come home. He started texting me again during the day. The sweetest texts of how he missed me. He was his old self back. One day what I hoped and waited patiently for happened. He ended things with her. He told her that he loved me, and that now everything was great again. Her services weren't needed, in other words. I felt relief and finally I could move on. Now I am preparing for my divorce. He will get the papers the day I leave for my new life in my new apartment. I know I will get a lot of hate for this, because I have neglected my husband and pushed him to seek solace in another woman's arms when I apparently could give him what he sought all along, and believe me, I will bear the guilt for the rest of my life. In my defense, I didn't do it intentionally. Our lives had just been altered drastically, and I was trying to navigate this new and exciting existence. I was immersed in this new kind of happiness that I thought I was sharing with him. And I was trying to get to know my new body, that I couldn't recognize anymore. A real scary feeling. But he could have come to me with his hurt. He could have talked to me about his suffering. He could have tried to make me understand, but he chose not to. He decided to deceive me. Deceive us. He ruined our love, our future, and even our history. Nothing was, is, or will be the same again. Comments. Comment 1. I just hope he took tons of screenshots of those texts. This isn't petty revenge but nuclear revenge, and I for one ain't mad at you. Revenge is best served cold, and this is ice cold. All the best to you and your little one in your new life. Looking forward to the update. Comment 2. I'm commenting kind of early on, but I love how people so far are basically like NGL, I love this for you. Which same here, LOL. In all seriousness, it's hard to leave a partner with a new baby. And I know that prepping for and starting a divorce isn't exactly easy. And I'm glad you used that time wisely. He had no problem pretending everything was all good when he was cheating. Why should you not return the favor? He set the standard here. Update 1. He always loved April Fool. I feel a lot of guilt and guilt-related pain. I know what I am doing is so cruel, but I guess I will just keep going with my plans. There's no turning back now. Whenever I feel shit like I am the bad guy, I just remember their conversations. No, I am not the villain here. I will end the marriage and I will tell him that it is because we aren't compatible anymore. Let him think whatever. I have decided maybe I shouldn't tell him that I know about her. Let him run back to her once he realizes that I am really gone. When my baby is older, we could tell him that we got an amicable divorce. No hurt or hard feelings. Two people who fell out of love. My boy doesn't need to know his daddy broke up the family. It is okay, you can hate me. Update 2. I know that I promised an update once I got out, but I have been so busy adjusting to my new life. I have received hundreds of "have you moved out? And is there an update?" in comments. I hope everyone who asked sees this, because I have no possibility to answer each and every one. Also, I don't know how many times I am allowed to update here. Hopefully this is okay. I did exactly as I planned. I moved out after I left my husband divorce papers. I told him that I wasn't in love with him anymore, and that I think we are better off as co-parents than as a couple. That I have found a new place and he could buy me out of our current home or sell the property once the divorce is finalized. He was in a total shock, but probably not the same shock I was in when I found out that he was cheating on me. He literally asked if I hit my head and even was telling people that he was worried that I had brain tumor. He was very angry in the beginning and wanted answers. No answer was good enough. Is there someone else? No, dear husband. There isn't someone else, but there isn't you either. The audacity of that man. I reminded him that we still had our son and to think about him before acting vindictive. Sure enough, he kept it civil around our son. One thing he kept asking is why, and how long ago I have stopped loving him. He didn't get any answers from me. Other than that, everything has been fine with me. I am adjusting well. I still miss him, but at the same time I feel like I could finally breathe. I feel like I have been living on shallow breathing for the past months, and now I could take full breaths. Our families are very sad and mostly shocked, but honestly they have been very understanding. There's no bad reason for divorce. Wanting divorce is a good enough reason for them. To want to separate, to not want to be with your partner. My ex-in-laws are still very active in my son's life, and they have been very cordial if yet a bit cold towards me. That represented itself when about 2 weeks ago, my mother-in-law in a bit passive-aggressive tone told me that my husband has started seeing someone. She apologized immediately and said that she just wanted me to know and be prepared that he had someone new, and yet I couldn't help but hear some vindication in her voice. I just answered, "Oh. Do you mean Karen?" I gave the mistress this name for obvious reasons. She looked shocked and asked me, "Did you know? Did he talk to you about it?" I said, "Oh no, but she isn't new." I told her that he has been sleeping with her since I just had given birth. Maybe even before that. I kept my voice very quiet and monotone, like we were discussing the weather. I was already regretting my slip, but the news that he started seeing Karen again, while very much anticipated, still made my heart hurt. My mother and father-in-law just looked at each other. I don't know if they believed me, but then how would I have known about Karen when I have refused to see him in person since our breakup? So now everyone knows anyway, and I have learned that you can't keep these things to yourself indefinitely. Since he found out, he has been called and apologizing every day. "Why didn't you tell me? How much did I hurt you?" He said that he loved me and never stopped loving me. That he was so sorry for everything, and that he would do anything to have me back as his wife. My mother-in-law apologized too, even though she had no control over what her grown-up son did or does. It's not her fault. He writes that he loves me every night before bed. I hope this doesn't mean that he would make the divorce drag out, because then I have failed my plan, but he seems to be less forgiving of the divorce when he knew that he was the reason for it than when he thought it was mine. Weird. The divorce is still processing, and if anything major happens I will be here again, if I haven't outstayed my welcome already. Now, for the next story. Am I the idiot for completely cutting off my family after they filed a restraining order against my husband without consulting me? I, 33 female, have been married to my husband, 32 male, for a few months, but we've been together for 6 years. My parents had asked us to move into their home 2 years back to help them out since my dad is medically disabled. We agreed because this would allow us to save up for a house. When I was 19, my father had a brain tumor, and at the same time his mother was in the hospital, and it wasn't good. My mom spent all her time at the hospital with my grandma, so I decided to take 2 years off from college and put in a leave of absence from my job until my dad was better so I could take care of him and my brother, who was younger. Fast forward, I met my now husband at work and we hit it off. From the beginning he took it upon himself to take my father to appointments and fix things around the house for them. When we moved in, my husband fixed the house for my parents every day after working 10 hours a day. Anything they asked of him, he did. He fixed the dryer 6 times, he repaired the HVAC system. He is not an HVAC. He took his personal time to learn the basics so our heat would work and anything else they needed. So now we are married for a few months and have been looking for a home. My mother has been rude and passive-aggressive with him ever since we got married. Some backstory on my childhood. I was emotionally abused by my mom and was taught how to hate my father because he was always working. My mother always used to tell me that my dad had no time for me and to not bother him for anything. My mother once broke an easel over my head when I was 6 because I was playing Barbies with my friend and she wanted to play with my new one, and I told her she could play with any other one she wanted. My mother has always been toxic, but I was always gaslit by family and friends, and it was always my fault. My brother, on the other hand, had stolen from my parents, stolen thousands and thousands of dollars from them, became addicted to hard drugs, and has threatened to beat my parents and myself multiple times. He's the golden child and can do no wrong. I have always resented my parents for this, but was always made to believe that I was being stupid, and it was my fault. My husband and I have put our own money into my parents' house to help fix it for them with no request for payment back. My parents have been ungrateful for everything we, especially my husband, have done for them, but we kept doing it because we lived there too. I recently was told by my therapist that in order to be healthy for myself and my husband I would have to confront my parents about all the issues and trauma that I had been living with. So I do this and all of a sudden they claim my husband is brainwashing me. In their words, there was never an issue, so why am I speaking up now? I was explaining to them that my therapist wants me to work on being more healthy with my family, and that is why I chose to speak to them. My husband and I received many gifts for our wedding, and both of my parents said to place them in a room no one uses. Just recently they've been complaining about the gifts and told us to figure out storage. So yesterday we bought a small shed from Sam's Club so we can place all of our things in it. This is what set my mother off. She said it was her house and we had no right to purchase it. When we tried to explain the reason for it, she started screaming at my husband, telling him he does nothing in the house and we just choose to do whatever we want to do because we are selfish. She also said she wanted us out of her house. I told her we had no place to go and that we needed time. She then charged my husband and went to punch him in the face. My father stopped her and then they called the police. When the police came, they told us that they felt sorry for us because we hadn't done anything, but that they decided to place a temporary restraining order on my husband and that they wanted me evaluated for brainwashing and Stockholm Syndrome. All of this over a freaking shed? The cops came a few hours later and said that I didn't have to leave, but that temporarily he would have to. So we packed up our things and our dog and left to a hotel. I've been getting messages from family saying that I'm in the wrong and I'm an asshole because I put my parents through hell. I've decided for my own mental health that I need to cut off all toxic family members because my husband and I don't deserve this. Eta? Edit. Hey all. I noticed my wording about the Stockholm Syndrome and brainwashing nonsense sounded like it came from the cops. I'm sorry. My parents were yelling and begging the police to evaluate me because I would never speak to them like this on my own. The police obviously didn't do anything of the sort and even told my parents that I was clearly speaking for myself and was under no duress. Comments. Comment 1. I can't wait for the mental gymnastics excuses those three will use on blaming Oop for that self-made. Those three are in. I legit Oop clapbacks with something like sorry. Can't help any of you after packing up paying for everything by myself alone when moving out. I realize I need my husband and you all put restraining order on him. So no can do on anything, not even a penny. Oh well. Go fuck yourselves. Comment 2. I'm not coming down on Up, but she seems like she's still addicted to the stress and drama of her family. She initially said she would cut her family off after she had all of her belongings out of their house, but now she's having dramatic text exchanges with her mother and promises to update if anything comes up. If you block them and go no contact, nothing should come up. But you are addicted to the chaos. It's hard to shake. Update 1. It's been 80 days since I posted it, and a lot has changed. My husband and I found a house and will be moving into our home at the end of August. I am currently low contact with my parents only because a lot of our things are in their house. I have already set up a day for the movers to come help me gather all of our belongings, and yes, my parents know we are taking our things. My parents were given no information other than we found a place of our own. My father has ignored me since the situation they caused and basically blames me for it, but then tells my mom out loud he's not mad at me when I'm there. My mother thinks all is well even though I tell her our relationship is the furthest from fine, but narcissistic parents will believe what they want. Once all of our things are out of the house, I'm cutting all contact with my parents and whoever else needs to go. My husband and I, even through this difficult situation, have gotten stronger and are living a fairly peaceful life. Therapy has been wonderful, and all the wonderful things that are coming our way, we are welcoming with open arms. One thing I realized, other than my parents being narcissists, is that I really did go through a lot of trauma throughout my life, and my parents still think they're the best parents out there. There was a moment, in the beginning of all of this, where I thought I couldn't keep going. When I came out of that place and was strong again, I spoke with my parents about it since my mom kept telling me how much they care about me still. Their response to all of this: oh well, that's not our fault and shit happens. They're right. Shit does happen. And it's gonna hit them hard once I am out of their lives for good. Thanks for all the kind words and advice. I thought I'd share with those, if anyone who cared to know how we are doing. Update 2. So my husband and I moved into our new home, and we are loving the freedom. When I went to my parents' house on Friday to help the movers, my brother began saying some disrespectful things to me for no reason. I was moving my stuff outside when he stopped me to tell me how I'm shit, and the whole family is so happy for me to be out of the house permanently. I took this moment to see if my mother or father would stand up for me for once. And they didn't. Therapy has been so helpful through this process, so it didn't bother me that he said it, or that they did nothing. It just makes cutting them off so much easier. My mother then texted me asking me if she and I can work on our relationship. I told her I'm not ready right now, because she still had proven that my brother and my father disrespecting me doesn't faze her. That's when the "I've done so much for you and you treat me this way well" the answer is yes, because my life is much better without their toxicity. My husband and I are so happy to have this home for ourselves and our fur baby. I just want to thank you all so much for all the support and kind words you shared. If anything with my parents comes up, I'll update, but at the moment this is the last. I hope you all have wonderful lives and just never give up. Stay strong and kick life's ass. Now, for the next story. Am I the idiot for refusing to reconnect with my mom after she chose to go no contact with me for over a decade? So, a little background: I'm 35 male, and my parents divorced when I was 17. My dad struggled with alcohol and drug addiction, and my mom eventually left him, which I totally understood and supported. Living with him was impossible. He wasn't violent but verbally abusive, and he spent all our money on his habits. That was the last straw for my mom. After the divorce, my dad spiraled. He nearly overdosed and ended up in the ICU. I was living with my mom at the time, but I was scared that my dad would die, so I moved back with him and my uncle's family. My mom was disappointed but let me make my choice. Losing my mom, most of his friends, going broke, nearly dying, finally got through to my dad, and he promised he would get better for me. It was hard to watch, but he actually turned things around. My uncle paid for everything: rehab, therapy, medical bills, and after about 5 years, my dad was clean and somewhat healthy again. He even apologized to my mom, and she forgave him, though she told me later it was only for my sake so that they could be civil at future events like my graduation or wedding. Over those years I kept in contact with my mom, regularly met with her. She had moved on and met a great guy, who she eventually married. She was much happier, and I was happy for her. I thought we had a pretty good relationship. That changed when I was 23. My mom asked me to come over, and she told me she was still angry and disappointed that I chose my dad over her after the divorce. She said I was ungrateful for everything she went through, putting up with my dad's shit, and then she hit me with something that still pisses me off today. She told me she could see me becoming a drunk and drug addict like my dad because I stayed close to him. I don't drink, I don't do drugs to this day, and I had no idea where that even came from. I was floored. I thought we had moved past all that, but apparently she'd been harboring resentment for years. Then, she said that she wanted to go no contact with me because being around me brought back too many bad memories of my dad. She said she had found peace and happiness, and I was a reminder of all the pain she'd been through. I didn't know what to say except okay. I later found out from a cousin on her side that her whole family was pissed at me for staying with my dad back then, and they all went no contact with me for her sake, saying that I betrayed her. I haven't seen or heard from my mom since that day. Fast forward to now. My dad passed away 2 years ago from a heart attack, a result of his years of addiction. Despite being clean for over a decade, he had lingering medical issues. I recently got married, and my wife posted some pictures from the wedding on Facebook. My wife said a woman claiming to be a cousin contacted her. I looked at the message and it was cousin from my mom's side, asking if it was really me in the pictures with my full name. I told my wife to ignore it, but then I got a call from my uncle later that same day saying that my mom showed up at his house. For context, the house where my uncle lives currently used to be the home where I grew up with my parents. My uncle said she asked him to arrange a meeting between us, saying she wants to apologize to me face to face. He told me he can set it up if I want. Honestly, after all these years, I feel nothing for her except maybe slight resentment for thinking that I would turn out as an addict. I was going to say no right away, but my wife thinks that's a shitty thing to do and I should at least hear her out, let her apologize, and then go back to never seeing her again if I want. She says despite what she did shield me from most of Dad's addictions growing up. Now I am having second thoughts. Ida, if I refuse to meet her? Comments. Comment 1. Not the idiot. You have to go with your gut. It has been 10 years, and she has discovered that you didn't become an addict and instead have created a happy life. You're married, which means there could be grandkids in the future. Are you happy without her? If you've moved on without that side of the family, if you've created your own happy family, then why rock that boat? Your wife may not be able to let it go though. And if you turn your mother down, you're going to have a lot of flying monkeys contacting you and your wife to tell you how cruel you're being. I couldn't deal with that, personally. I don't do drama. She made a choice, and you've respected it. I'd say no and be ready with the block feature. Comment 2. Even though Oop is happy with his new family, and somehow find his closure, his mother's still the same selfish, vile person. She admitted to spread lies about her own son to her family to make them side with her, but never says what lies she told and didn't tell the truth to them. So she's not regretful as she claims. Also, if you think about it, she reappeared on Oop's life just to abandon him again. I think she decides to go NC again with Oop because she's scared of facing the consequences of her actions. If Oop reapers in her life, her extended family will know what she did to him. Update. First, I want to talk about this. A few of you said I abandoned my mom when I went to live with Dad. It looks that way when I think about it now, however, I feel I never abandoned her in any way. I loved my mom dearly and I loved my dad too. When she told me she was divorcing Dad, I helped her pack. I left with her as I thought at the time Dad was a lost cause. I went back about 7 months after the divorce when my dad was fighting for his life. That was when he promised me he would change and get help. I chose to stay with Dad after getting permission from Mom. As I said in my first post, she was disappointed but agreed Dad needed me. Even after I chose to stay with my dad and uncle, I always stayed in contact with her. My mom and dad lived about 20 minutes apart, and I made sure to see my mom regularly 4 to 5 times a week at least. I would talk to her every day too. We went on trips together, ate meals together, and hung out as much as we could. When she moved in with her new husband, who I will call John, she always included me in her new family's life. John was good to me too. For all that time there was not even one inclination of the resentment Mom had for me when she blindsided me with the decision to go no contact. I was completely shocked. She never expressed any anger or frustrations toward me. We never argued, and she never showed she was upset about my relationship with my dad, until that day. After she blocked me from everyone, I tried for a couple of years to reconnect but eventually gave up when I moved out of the city. A lot of you told me to meet her for closure, while others said not to bother. After thinking about it for a while, I had decided to meet her, and was going to tell my uncle to set up a meeting with her, but before I could tell him, my uncle called me again, 3 days after my mom showed up at his house. He told me she came by again and gave him a letter for me, and she apologized for bothering him, and that she wouldn't be coming by again, and she didn't want to raise my hopes unnecessarily, and hoped I would understand after I read the letter. Uncle said she sounded very sincere. I asked my uncle to send me pictures of the letter. It's not that long and I'll summarize the important bits. The letter was a mix of apologies and well wishes. She wrote she was sorry for how she treated me back then, especially for saying I'd turn out like my dad. She said she was going through some relationship issues with John, and then seeing Dad getting better made her feel bitter because Dad never tried for her. She thought her second marriage was failing and everyone around her was happy while she was miserable. She said she listened to some bad advice and she regrets it. She said she regrets taking her anger all on me when she should have gotten help. She said she made up lies to her side of the family so that they side with her. I do not know these lies. Is this what she only wrote? She said she got help a couple of years after she went no contact but was too ashamed to reach out to me. She saw the wedding pictures and is happy for me, wishing me the best in my life. She wrote that while she initially wanted to meet me, after some reflection and with her family's advice she realized it was for selfish reasons, and for her own sake only. She apologized again and said it's better if we keep things the way they are. She ended the letter by saying she's happy, and she doesn't want to drag up the past. She apologizes once more, and wrote she won't contact me again for both our sakes and asked me not to contact her as well, and wished me and my wife well. So there's that. Honestly, it's probably the best outcome, and I'm at peace with it. I am happy with my life and I am glad Mom is happy with her life. Like she asked, I am not going to contact her, but I will keep my door open if she wants to meet in the future. I also realized how stupid I was to hold on to my resentment of her comment about me becoming an addict. I also want to address the comments that said my wife was overstepping. My wife knows all about my past and about my mom. She is a kind soul who sees the best in people. Like I said in a comment in my first post, she was just looking out for me. She wanted me to have no regrets. She did apologize for saying it would be shitty not to meet Mom, but it's all good. We both know each other's boundaries, we communicate well. Right now we're planning our honeymoon, and life is good. Thanks for all the supportive messages and comments, truly appreciate it. Bye. Now, for the next story. Women at my workplace made a list of the most attractive guys and excluded me from it. So here's the deal, I 21M work at a store part-time while I'm attending classes. There are a total of 21 of us who work at this store, 13 girls, 8 guys, and we're all around the same age. We have a pretty good working atmosphere, no open hostility so far I know, and everyone gets along well, and jokes around with everyone. Though I will say, the guys and girls do tend to stick together more. As for me, I'm fairly well liked by everyone. I try and be pleasant to everyone I work with, because who needs an asshole coworker? Unfortunately, here's where things go bad. One of the guys who work as Chris 23M is dating one of the girls in the store, Ashley 21F. Chris was apparently basing on her phone when he came across the girls' group chat. He said it was mostly girl talk, but he found a list ranking all of the guys in the store by their hotness. He had a laugh about it, and screenshotted it to send to our group chat. Everyone saw it, and had a laugh at the rankings. The guy at the top, Chad 22M, kept sending crown emojis. Then everyone noticed I wasn't there. I didn't look at the chat till later since I was with my parents at the time, and had it on mute. When I saw I wasn't on the list, it was like I was slapped across the face. And the worst part of this? The list was out of 10, and they included the 3 delivery guys who drop off stuff and some of the girls flirt with. This crushed me, in a way I don't think I've ever been crushed before. It's like, damn, I'm that much of a hideous monster that I'm not worthy of being ranked. I spent the rest of my day being miserable, and not talking to anyone. When I wasn't responding to the chat, the guys all tried to hit me up individually. But I didn't respond. I looked into the chat, and the guys were starting to be pissed on my behalf, which I definitely didn't want. I decided to call in sick the next day, and when I didn't show up, apparently it all came out into the open. The girls at the store started messaging me, apologizing to me, and making all kinds of excuses. Quite frankly, I didn't care. I decided to face the music the next day and suck it up at work. When I walked into work, the atmosphere was a lot more tense than it usually was. Becky 23F, who is the assistant manager and was on the group chat, pulled me to the side and asked if we could talk. I said okay. She apologized on behalf of everyone in the chat and said that the list was not serious. It was girl talk, and not meant to be seen outside the chat. She said that everyone, especially the women at the store, like me for far more valuable things than simply how I look, and that if it were a list of nicest guys in the store, I'd be one. I couldn't help but feel like this was damage control and being friend-zoned all in one motion. I said thank you. But I'm past it, and I don't want anyone's pity, and I went about my day. Of course, I did end up getting that pity with a lot of the guys coming over to talk to me and some of the girls as well. I got so fed up I went to the manager and asked to go home early. She agreed because she kinda knew what was going on. This was all about 5 days ago, and since then everyone at the store has been trying to get me to talk. But I haven't gone back. I don't want pity and I don't want sympathy. If they think I'm ugly, then fine, but don't try and justify it or make me feel better about it. The reason I'm here is because I need advice on how to navigate the situation at my job and with my friends. How do I tell everyone to basically leave me alone and not pity me? Because honestly, I'm leaning towards just quitting. Edit. Hey everyone, I'm reading your comments and I thank everyone for their input. The tough love and all. I just wanted to pop in here and say one thing. I didn't feel entitled to them thinking I was hot. I don't feel entitled to sex or whatever from them. I'm not a nice guy or an incel. The reason I was upset is because them leaving me off the list for relative strangers felt pretty cruel and messed up. I don't know how to describe it. Like, I guess it sucks I'm not attractive to them, but being left off entirely felt like a step too far. Comment 1. It's completely understandable to feel hurt, but try to recognize that this situation is more about their thoughtlessness than anything about your worth. Setting boundaries with your coworkers might help you feel more comfortable moving forward. Comment 2. It might help to be upfront with them and calmly express how their actions affected you, so they can understand your feelings without having to keep making it a big deal. You deserve respect, not pity. Update. Hey everyone, I'm back, and boy do I have an update for you. I can't believe this situation exploded so much. There was a fight, arrests, and I think someone might be getting divorced. Okay, not really. People wanted to know how I was doing, so I decided I'd just make an update. I just wanted to clear up a few things. First, I didn't care necessarily if they found me ugly or whatever. I just felt like being left off the list was a deliberate slap in the face. I didn't, or don't feel entitled to anything. Next, the manager of the store, Barb, was not involved in the group chat in any way. She's a 38-year-old married woman with 2 kids who is far too busy trying to get us to stop smoking weed behind the store on our breaks. What I meant to say is that she was made aware of the situation after it was brought to her attention. Third, I wasn't aware of the list right away. I was with my parents and wasn't paying attention to the chat. Now, after reading the comments on the first thread, I decided that while I could be upset that I was deemed unattractive, I probably shouldn't care as much I did. I kinda wanted to discover why not being on the list hurt me so much, so I took my sister's advice and will be seeking a therapist. Funny enough, my grandpa has a saying that came to mind when reading the comments in the first thread. Whenever my dad or his brothers and sisters would be upset about something, my grandpa would tell them I didn't get wounded in the Drang Valley so you could sit there and cry about X. The X could be anything. The point is, he was telling them to toughen up. It became a joke among my aunts and uncles that passed down to my cousins. So I could hear my grandpa telling me in head, I didn't get wounded in the IAA Drang Valley so you could sit there and cry about some girls thinking you're ugly. And that got me up a bit. I was still feeling kinda shitty. But I decided to put on a brave face and tell my manager I'd come into work the next day after posting the thread. As soon as I walked in, the manager took me to her office and said the owner of the store wanted to see me. I wasn't really worried since I had a good relationship with Carl, who was the owner. Carl told me he heard about the story and he was sorry about everything. He said the list was childish and unprofessional and he was sorry I had to take time off to deal with it. He said the girls all got a strong reprimand and a stern warning that this wouldn't be tolerated in the future. He also suspended Becky, because he said she should have not been in the chat to begin with, and if she was, she should stop the list stuff. He also emphasized that he told everyone that he hadn't talked to me yet, and that he wasn't punishing anyone because I asked for it. He also said he'd pay me for the shifts I missed as a bit of compensation for the mental distress. I thanked him and told him I was over it pretty much right away. I just hated having everyone think I needed coddling and wanted everything to cool down. With that we shook hands and I started my day. Everyone welcomed me back and I said hey to everyone. I went to my locker and found a letter slipped inside. It was a handwritten letter from all the girls. I'll summarize here because the list was long. They apologized profusely for the chat in the list. They said that nothing was going to make it right, or make me believe them, but they wanted to say once again the list was non-serious and meant to be some stupid fun. And no one was meant to see it. They said that they all loved me individually, that I was a good person and that makes me more attractive than most people who are considered hot. Interestingly, they said I was considered cute. Okay then LOL. I flagged down one of the girls on shift who I get along with really well, Sam 20F, to tell the group that I accept their apology. I told her to tell them that I got over it pretty much right away, that I just took time off because I wanted the situation to die down and that I didn't take anything personally. Also I told her that I'm sorry that anyone got in trouble. I didn't talk to the Barb or Carl about anything until today. I didn't want this to become an issue at all. Unfortunately the guys made it an issue on my behalf. Sam apologized again, and told me she'd tell everyone. And that's that. Sorry if this was not the explosive post you all were looking for. I just wanted to get this situation resolved as soon as possible and put behind me so that I and everyone else can move on. I am thinking about not returning next semester however. So thanks all. I appreciate your comments and helping me get through this little episode in my life. Now, for the next story. I recently discovered that my husband has been having an affair with our best friend. I recently found out that my husband 42 is cheating on me with our married best friend 32 female. She is the godmother to our 4 children. They don't know that I know, but I caught them making out at the end of our driveway when he was seeing her off after dinner with our family. We live on a small acreage and the driveway is a long way off from the main house. She had forgotten some crockery at the house and I decided to walk it over, because for some reason the two of them always took a while to say goodbye. Now I know why. That's when I saw them lit by her car's headlights. Making out in the front seat with our best friend straddling my husband. In shock I didn't know whether to throw her Pyrex at the car or just walk away. I decided the latter, and was too shocked to cry or be angry. When my husband got back I had to pretend like everything was normal. I know that it's stupid but I couldn't sleep that night and decided to go through his phone. She was obviously under a pseudonym but I found a handful of their messages dating 2 or 3 years. Her husband doesn't know. He's currently posted overseas as a diplomat. I'm sick with rage and betrayal. I'm lost and have no idea what steps to take next. Comment 1. I'm so sorry you're going through this. You deserve honesty and respect, and it's okay to take time to process your emotions before deciding what to do next. Comment 2. It might be helpful to talk to a therapist or counselor to sort through your feelings before confronting anyone. You don't have to make any decisions immediately, and taking care of yourself is the priority right now. Update 1. Whoa, didn't expect this much support. It's really overwhelming. Just to clarify a few things, this is a private account I created just for this post away from my usual account, because I was scared it would be traced back to me. I want to remain anonymous as much as I can. I don't live in the US but in Australia. Technically I can't file for divorce immediately as you need to be separated for 1 year and 1 day to file officially. My now ex-best friend just recently returned to the country. Her father has cancer after being posted with her husband overseas. The dinner was to welcome her home, and what a welcome. There's some comments here about the headlights illuminating them. Sorry, I meant overhead lights. As to what I'm going to do now, a part of me just wants to confront my husband, see what lame excuse he has. But I need to get away from him. This level of betrayal physically hurts. I can't help but think of all the times we spent together over the years, and for how long our families were fooled. My mind is going crazy. When she was single and he would rescue her from some bad date, or the times they were alone in my house when the kids and I were out. How irrationally angry he was when he found out she had a boyfriend then chose to marry him. Thinking back on it, the two of them disappeared at her wedding. When I asked him where he was, he said he needed to reassure her that she had done the right thing. I feel so sick thinking of these things. Update 2. Thank you everyone for your concern and advice. As of tomorrow my husband is out of town. I've tried really hard to act normal around my now ex-best friend, but it's proving difficult and I feel sick. I have been telling both of them that I've caught some terrible bug and just not feeling myself. While my husband is out of town for the next few days, my sister-in-law, who is the only other person who knows my brother's wife, will help me pack important documents and store them somewhere my husband doesn't know about. I've organized for my kids to stay with them for a week while I sort my shit out. I've spoken to a family lawyer, and they have told me that the best way to start the separation procedure is to no longer be living under the same roof. I'm fortunate in that most of our assets are also in my name, and the land our house is on was gifted to us by my parents. I'm planning to kick him out after his trip. But before that I want to catch them both in the act again. Have some hard proof, send it to the ex-friend's husband, and get the ball rolling for moving on with my life. I'll update with what happens after the confrontation. Final update. My husband came home 2 nights ago from his trip. While he was gone, I had organized a lot of the important documents, e.g., financial, birth certificates, passports, anything that he could potentially use to try and get more than what he deserves. They are now safely stored and my kids have been staying with their aunt and uncle for the past few days. I had packed all my husband's things, and he has been really good at keeping his tracks clean because there was no evidence of his affair within his stuff. I placed all his belongings in the garage ready for the confrontation with him. I was super nervous because I wasn't sure if I was making the right decision. Once he came home and I remembered seeing him kissing our best friend, I remembered the deep hurt they had caused. I was in our kitchen when he came home and he knew straight away something was wrong. During that week I had been distant, and had barely answered his texts and screened his calls. I did answer every now and again, and gave the kids a chance to speak to their dad. He asked me why I hadn't been responding to his texts and he tried to kiss me, but I turned away, and before I knew it the first things that came out of my mouth were, "I want a separation." I have to admit that he didn't look very surprised when I said it. He nodded his head and said, "What do you know?" Which was just a punch in the gut, because I wanted him to deny it or say something like it was a one-off thing. I asked him to tell me everything, like when did it start? And he said they started about 10 years ago. At first it was flirtatious messaging, and a sneaky kiss in the office when they briefly worked together, and the affair was on and off. She apparently always felt guilty, and her way out of that was to marry the next man that was interested in her, and proposed. He admitted that they had sex on her wedding day, and when he is out of town they meet. At this point I couldn't breathe and I was sobbing. I hated that the next words out of my mouth was, "Did you even ever love me?" He hesitated and said yes of course, but he was never in love with me the way he was with her. I cleared my throat, and had said to him that he should tell her husband there is no point hiding it anymore. I told him that all his stuff was in the garage and he can find somewhere else to stay. I let him know that I have spoken to a family lawyer, and I told him that when I feel ready, and only when I feel ready, will we see each other again and talk about the future arrangement with the kids. I said any further communication can be done through my sister-in-law, or my brother. I said, he is allowed to see the kids but only at their place. I am of course wanting full custody of the children, because it hurts too much to give him anything at this point. He agreed to all my points because he knew he was in the wrong. He tried to say sorry, and then I absolutely lost my shit and screamed, "No fucking no way are you sorry. For 10 fucking years you have both deceived everyone we know. Please take your shit and leave and tell that woman you have been fucking for 10 years that I do not ever want to see her fucking face again." Certainly not my shining moment, but also a culmination of all the hurt and anger over the last few weeks that they have caused. I have no intention of talking to my ex-best friend or really to my soon-to-be ex-husband until I have had the time to grieve. So thank you community for the encouragement and advice. Hope I can heal and move on from this. Update 3. Thank you everyone who has been messaging over the last year to see how I'm going and asking for an update. Scroll below for the full story. It's been a crazy, painful year. But our divorce has been finalized. And I'm free. My ex-husband and my ex-best friend, as no surprise, are now in an actual relationship after the ex-best friend's husband found out about the affair. He divorced her, and since then we have met up for coffee to check in on each other and our mental health. He's been great, sending encouraging messages, and he lives overseas and from his Facebook updates has started dating again. So I'm very happy for him. The legal and custody battles had been fairly stressful, but the ex-husband agreed to all my terms. The custody of the children was the only thing he really fought for. I have custody of the kids and he sees them on the weekends. The kids, including myself, have all been going to therapy separately. My ex-husband wants to see them more, and during school break the kids have the choice to stay with him or me. They have been good about it and stay with him for a week or so and then back to their mummy. Apart from necessary conversation, I steer away from my ex-husband and the ex-best friend. It still hurts so much, and I understand that it will take some time to heal. But I am letting go, because I don't want them to have that level of influence over my life. I decided to sell the property we were living in and move closer to family and friends because, as you know, it takes a village. And I have been extremely grateful for the support I have received over the last year. I'm tearing up just as I'm writing this, knowing that I couldn't go through all of this without my loved ones. And for myself, I am happy overall, still a work in progress but grateful for life. The kids and myself have been enjoying life, and when we have the time and the money, try and take little trips here and there, so the traumatic events of the divorce doesn't linger and can be replaced by good memories. Memories where they spent road trips and adventures with their mom,